What is up, everybody? Nate Liss from DynastyRankings.com back with you guys one more time, and this week I'm doing something a little different than I have before. The videos that you guys are used to seeing from me are typically in a much different format. For those of you guys that have checked out my stuff before, I had a Saquon Barkley video about 3 months ago. I did it like this. It was a live video. This is obviously a local recording. That's why nobody's in the chat right now. But I'm in the middle of a sleeper draft, and I wanted to pitch a best ball option to everybody because there was a recent free agent signing that I think is going under the radar for a lot of different reasons. And I think a ton of it has to do with where this player is at in their career. I think a lot of people think that there is no venom left in the snake. So I'm going to try to prove that wrong. I'm trying to convince myself that I should draft this player, and I'm going to show you guys the current draft that I'm in. It's a redraft best ball league. We are entering the middle of the 14th round, and it's time for me to take a swing on a player that could have immense upside. I spent all day going through my head thinking about this pick because the draft has slowed up that much. So the whole day I've just been thinking, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. The pick prior to the player that I'm going to tell you about, I almost selected him there, but shout outs to a good buddy of mine, patron of mine that convinced me of otherwise. And here we are, roughly 12 picks later, and my player is still on the board, and I'm currently 2 picks away from possibly selecting him. So I'll mention that. But what I want to mention today, for those of you guys that have continued to subscribe and join the channel, appreciate all you guys. If you follow me on Twitter at @AnOutrageJew and have been following my work for a while, once again, I appreciate all the support that you guys give me. I want to make an announcement right now that I will be launching an independent live video cast, which will simulcast as a podcast every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. The show is, of course, self-titled, I'm Outraged. Like the sign says, God damn it. Are you kidding me? Come on, Bob. For God's sakes, I got nothing on the TV, nothing on the sign. This is really inside baseball right now, and this is the kind of stuff that you're going to get live. One thing that I will say about this show that, again, will be live on YouTube every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific is that it's going to be unlike any show that you've ever seen for the most part. I've spent a lot of time curating ideas, content, graphics, different items. For those of you guys, again, that have been following me, you know that I'm a very visual person. I try to use aesthetically pleasing things. I try to support all my statistics. I'm going to do all these things. Plus, I'm going to blow your minds with a bunch of shit that you guys had no idea was coming or even thought was possible via a live broadcast. I'm about to change the game. I'm letting you guys know that now. With that said, I want to talk to you guys about this player that I am looking at right now, and his name is Julio Jones. So Julio Jones, let's change the picture-in-picture here for a second. There's my current draft board. Julio Jones is the player that I am targeting in this draft. So let me show you my roster currently. Again, this is a 12-team redraft best ball league. And currently on my roster, and it's tight end premium, and there's a lot of settings. It's almost like Scott Fishbowl, but there's even some more tripwires to it. So I've been building this roster: Kyler Murray, Travis Kelce, Najee Harris, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Marquise Brown, Tannehill. So I'm very confident in the build that I'm working towards. And then I just start trying to check off the boxes. Upside on Edmonds, go Thielen, go Woods, 2 players that offer the upside, are proven veterans in situations that I still like. Kareem Hunt, Rashad White, obviously. And right here we get to Alexander Mattison. Now, at this point in time, I really did want to take Julio Jones. Believe it or not, even with guys like George Pickens on the board, or excuse me, guys like, who's down here? There's a ton of names. Nonetheless, even with other names on the board, Julio Jones was the name that I had been targeting. But then I had a conversation about Alexander Mattison. We looked at what Mattison did last year in the 3 games when he was essentially a starter, and he was averaging about 23.5 fantasy points per game. Dalvin Cook's proven fragility, whether it's multiple games, half a season, a few games. When Mattison gets opportunity, he is a no doubt running back 1. So it was a tough decision to pass on Julio Jones here, but my confidence was that, of course, nobody else was going to take him. Nobody was going to reach on Julio Jones here, despite the fact that his situation is really juicy. You look at the guys that went after him. White goes off the board. Nico Collins, to a much worse Houston offense where he's not the number one in the offense, goes off the board. Ronald Jones, Osborne, Higbee, again, this is tight end premium, 1.75. Palmer goes off the board. He's the third option, fourth behind Eckler. Galladay, will he resurge? We don't know. So here we are. I got to wait through this pick, and I got to wait through this pick, but I know the good doc, he's not going to take him because the good doc gave me immense amounts of crap for taking Adam Thielen and Robert Woods, so there's not a chance in hell that he's going to take my guy Julio Jones down here. The only thing I got to worry about is this pick right here that we're on the clock with right now. And I guess you guys can't see it as I'm looking at the board. You don't see my cursor, which is driving me nuts. So I'm going to have to fix this in the future. I really don't know what to say. So let's switch screens for a minute, talk about Julio Jones. So, there you go. Now you can see it. What's going on here? Julio Jones, 33 and a half years old. It comes from the Tennessee offense last season. Injuries once again plagued Julio Jones. And we've seen injuries be a part of the Julio Jones profile since the beginning of time. We get a couple solid seasons down here. Those of us that have played fantasy long enough know that Julio Jones for the longest time was a supremely talented fantasy asset, but he came with volatility. And that's the same with many players. I looked at Tyreek Hill last year, and I believe over 50% of Tyreek Hill's outings last season netted less than 10 fantasy points per game. But they change the game in fantasy football when they're on your roster, right? That's what we talk about. These guys always say, well, you could have a guy that averages 15 points a game, or you could have a guy with the volatility of Tyreek Hill that can give you 30-point weeks. Who do you prefer? And most fantasy analysts will say, well, give me the guy that 1/3 of his games or a quarter of his games blows it up because those games can change the course of a week. Julio Jones can still do that. You go back to his time in Tennessee last season. Again, injuries riddled him, but he starts out the beginning of the year here. We get an 18-point fantasy game out of Julio Jones on just 8 targets. Again, nagging injuries throughout the year down here. Inconsistency in an offense that doesn't use Julio Jones the way that he's meant to be used. Ryan Tannehill is a quarterback that, as much as I love him, I made a video about Ryan Tannehill not too long ago. Ryan Tannehill is a bad fit for Julio Jones. Here's why. Deep ball pass attempts last season, number 24 in the league. Let's go the year prior. Number 26 in the league. Let's go the year prior. Number 27 in the league. You guys see the problem here. He doesn't push the ball downfield, and that's a big issue when you're banking on Julio Jones being your weapon. And also, let's not forget the fact that we had A.J. Brown in the same offense who was very clearly, for lack of better terms, the alpha in that particular offense. So we get Julio Jones. He's aged. He comes from an offense where he got hurt once again. He didn't necessarily produce highly, but one really interesting thing, because I just did a deep dive on this, and I will be doing a video on YouTube at some point. I started it the other night. It's part of the reason I'm doing this video. And I was doing a deep dive using playerprofiler.com's new metric that they posted here, total route wins, and more specifically, route win rate, right? And so I was doing this video about it, and I was on this immense deep dive looking at what the correlation between the route win rate and guys in the top 12 fantasy points per game last season looked like. And I fell down this immense rabbit hole, and I'm going to preview you guys to part of what I saw. So when we look at Julio Jones, though, last year, Julio Jones, only 88 total route wins. That was number 97 at the position, but Julio Jones only ran a total of 224 routes. Guys, we had wide receivers running well over 500 routes last year. So Julio Jones didn't run that many routes due to injury, due to usage. But what really stands out to me down here is Julio Jones' win rate. Now, it might say the wide receiver 50, but it's a 39.3% route win rate. Now, yesterday, when I was doing my deep dive, which again, you guys will see this in the future, I analyzed route win rate, and I set a threshold. I said 40% route win rate is going to be the threshold I look at, and I'm going to identify anybody that drops below it. So here's what happened. When I looked last season at the top 12 fantasy producers that were wide receiver ones, what I came up with was we had Cooper Kupp at the top, Devontae Adams, right? This is sorted by fantasy points per game. But look at the number next to the team that they play for. Green represents any route win rate that was north of 40%. Red represents any route win rate that was south of 40%. And what's very interesting, and this is why my deep dive took me a million miles off course is that Jamar Chase, as well as Chris Godwin, as well as Mike Evans and T. Higgins were all sub 40%. Now, admittedly, route win rate is a eye test metric. It's a human analyzed metric. It's not binary, okay? It's not yards per route run where we have the routes. It's binary. The yards, we have them. It's binary. It's a concrete number. No, this is done with the eye, but I took it at face value, and I had 4 players that fell beneath that 40% threshold. And it was interesting because those 4 players all came from 2 different teams. Very interesting that it was Tom Brady, and then we had, of course, Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I went down this crazy rabbit hole, like how could these 4 guys have win rates sub 40%, and then all these other guys that you see on this list are north of it. And what becomes very, very interesting is that these 2 teams in particular had quarterbacks with high levels of money throws. Money throws necessarily being high skill level, potentially contested catch situation throws. And so you see Jamar Chase was, I believe, number 8 overall in contested catches. Mike Evans was number 4 overall. T. Higgins was number 7. All 3 of those guys were top 10 in contested catches, while Chris Godwin was not. He was number 30 overall. So I go on another deep dive and look at the slot receivers and their usage of contested targets, and I just went down an absolute rabbit hole. But I digress. We talked about our guy right here. Let's go to Julio Jones once again on Tom Brady. I apologize. Go to Julio Jones, route win rate of 39.3%. Go back to my picture. 39.3% is just beneath my marker. But what's really interesting is when we look at all the guys that finished inside the top 12 last season, they were right around a 40% route win rate, right? Besides Jamar Chase, besides Mike Evans, who are clashers down the field and won on numerous contested catches as well. But what I did then was I said, screw it. Let's look at number 13 through 24. Bang, here they are. Now, I put a line through Calvin Ridley because my threshold was at least 8 games played. And for those of you guys sharp enough to look back at the first page, you'll notice that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's no number 8. I photoshopped this image that used to be Antonio Brown, which, by the way, is a very, very interesting topic because Antonio Brown is going to be my conduit into bringing Julio Jones into the scenario in Tampa Bay. Let's look back at the top 24, though. When we look at the top 24, again, route win rate over 40%. Look at these guys. Only CeeDee Lamb, of all these players, only CeeDee Lamb was below a route win rate of 40%. That means of the top 24 players, 19 of them had a win rate of higher than 40%. 5 of them were below it. But again, when we look at the first group, contested catches was a massive factor when we talk about Higgins, when we talk about Evans, when we talk about Jamar Chase. So it's a very interesting deep dive. Hopefully some of you guys are recognizing the incredibly interesting data dive that I fell into. But let's talk about Julio Jones again for a second here. So pop back into Julio Jones page right now. So I look at this and I see that Julio Jones route win rate is actually pretty good, despite the fact that the bare metrics might not be super favorable. But again, last year, top 30 average depth of target. We look at his usage last season. Julio Jones really doesn't fall off the map when you look at yards per reception, 14 last year, 15 the year before that. I mean, he's just a downfield playmaker, and he wasn't utilized that way in Tennessee. But guess what, guys? Tom Brady last season, when we look at his total air yards, boom, number 1 in the whole league, 5,756 total air yards. You know who throws it downfield? Tom Brady. You know who's got a high level of money throws and is willing to take a risk on guys that can make big time contested catches or can get open in small windows? Tom Brady can. Guess what? Deep ball pass attempts, baby. Number 1 overall in the league. Now, also number 1 in red zone attempts, which is where Julio Jones has been absolutely dominant, and Rob Gronkowski is not playing there anymore. So you got to ask yourself, why is Julio Jones not a good fit for an offense that used Mike Evans sparingly last year, all things considered, but we expect Mike Evans to crush this year, has only Russell Gage really filling in at this point, who got tons of hype prior to this moment. Chris Godwin coming off of an ACL tear, and though in my video I believe Chris Godwin would be back by week 1, and by all indications it looks like he will be back very early in the year, but we don't know what version of Godwin we get back. And then there's people out there going, well, Julio Jones is washed. Well, once again, I absolutely disagree with the statement. We looked at Julio Jones again last year, prior to the injury, 18.8, again, underutilized, 4 targets, 5 targets, 4. But again, route win rate says that Julio was defeating defenders at a rate as high as most of the guys in the top 24. Then we get down here, Julio Jones finally gets targeted again 9 times, 16.8 fantasy points per game, top 28 at the position. But I like to look back at this Tampa Bay offense back in early 2001, prior to Antonio Brown pulling one of the craziest things that we've ever seen and walking off of the field. Let's go to the first game that Tampa Bay played last year, because I really want to identify something to the people watching this video. So in this first week, Antonio Brown, 7 targets, 5 catches, 121. Chris Godwin, 13 targets. Mike Evans, very underutilized in this moment. Okay, so right off the bat, we can see that there's a usage scenario that could be very fluid all year long. I remember tweeting out early in the year, Antonio Brown is really going to shake things up in this offense. He may end up being one of the top wide receivers in the league, a wide receiver 1 overall. I took him out of that first chart, but he was number 7 overall in fantasy points per game last year in 7 games. So very clearly, the third weapon in a healthy offense that, by the way, did include Leonard Fournette and did include Rob Gronkowski. So let's go forward 1 week. I just want to take you guys through the scenario here, because I'm convincing myself as I'm looking at the sleeper draft. Let's double check. Nope, still not on the clock yet. So we go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. Here's week 2. In week 2 of the season, Antonio Brown. Now, this was the underwhelming week that we did see from him and in the 7 games that he did play. Mike Evans, 9 targets, 5 for 75. Chris Godwin, 5 targets. Okay, so healthy Chris Godwin, by the way. Let's roll forward yet another week, because this is when stuff really starts to shake out. Oh boy, come on, Mac, be on my side here. So we're going to go down to, oh, nope, he missed this game. Apologies, should have done my homework. Hold on. Don't click the ad, Nate. Don't click the ad. All right, here we go. Let's do this. Antonio Brown, 11 targets, 7 for 63. Mike Evans, 12 targets. Chris Godwin, once again, just 5 targets. So Tom Brady very clearly showing favoritism to a guy in Antonio Brown that could get open, was a proven elite fantasy talent. Again, similar to Julio Jones. Let's roll forward another week here as they blow out the Dolphins. Let's see what happened. Antonio Brown, 8 targets, 7 for 124. Mike Evans, 8, 6 for 113. And Chris Godwin flashing heavily in this particular game, in a game when we didn't see much of Leonard Fournette in the particular rushing game. All these guys on fire. But once again, Antonio Brown, who really was the third wheel coming into the season, blows it up, 2 touchdowns. Yet again, dominant performance. Roll forward another week. Let's go forward one more week, guys. Get down to here. And here we go. Antonio Brown, 13 targets, 9 for 93, and a touchdown. Chris Godwin, 5 targets. Mike Evans, 4 targets. Irrelevant days. Guys, Antonio Brown, once again. And you look at the clips of Julio Jones right now at practice. Julio Jones looks crisp once again. And if you guys think he is dead, once again, I take you back to route win rate. The guy was getting it done at the level of anybody inside the top 24. Tom Brady aired the ball out last year. We have offensive line issues, obviously, entering the year this year. That really doesn't mean anything to me. I think that Tampa Bay is still going to be in shootouts. Tom Brady's still going to look to pass often in this offense. Roll forward another week here. I can't remember if this is the week that he went nuts or not. I think Antonio Brown was gone by this week. And then once again, this is where we see Godwin. We see Evans going absolutely ham. So guys, here's my argument. I believe Julio Jones is not dead, despite the fact that he's 33 and a half years old. There's a precedence of aged wide receivers playing well into their mid to late 30s. Again, he's in the early part of the mid 30s. We're not at the mid per se, but we are approaching it. But Julio Jones has been an absolute talent his whole career. He's playing with Tom Brady. They air it out all the time in this offense. Number 1 in money throws, number 1 in deep targets, Tom Brady blew it up all year. You've got Mike Evans to take off the pressure. You've got Chris Godwin at some point to take off the pressure. You've got backfield help in Leonard Fournette to take off the pressure. Now, in a best ball format, why would you not go Julio Jones? Why would Julio Jones not be the option? I can't think of one reason why I don't like Julio Jones. Now, if he was in Tennessee again, I get it. Ryan Tannehill doesn't throw it deep. They had other weapons. You guys can say that Traylon Burks is going to go off. I really don't care. The point is, Julio Jones in 2022, while we wait for Chris Godwin, while we're missing Rob Gronkowski, while Mike Evans maybe doesn't get a massive boost in his target share, I don't know. But signing Julio Jones may also be more of an indictment against a guy like Russell Gage. And I'm sure Tom Brady had say in this pick. So again, I go back to what I saw from Julio Jones last year. He looked good. We saw a few blow-up performances. We can even go back to 2020. Prior to that, you see Julio Jones starts off the year, 24 points, 33, 17, 20, 16, 15. Guys, this is at age 32 he's doing that. So he's still way past the age apex. I'm not gonna sit here and listen to people tell me, well, he's 1 year older than he was when he did that, so he's precipitously fallen off. Now, guys, it was 1 year. Okay, he had injuries. Julio Jones has been known to have injuries, but in a best ball format, in the offense that had the most total air yards of any team in the NFL, you're telling me with Godwin coming off the mend, Rob Gronkowski gone, and a team that may be airing it out more frequently than ever, you don't want Julio Jones in best ball? Get the heck out of here, guys. All right, that's all that I've got. I've convinced myself as soon as this pick becomes available, I'm going to do it. I was hoping to be able to do it live on this episode, but of course, these guys are fiddling around. We got guys on the clock forever. It's not going to happen. But again, guys, thank you for checking this video out. Comment below. Tell me if I'm crazy. Maybe I convinced you to go snag Julio Jones, even in your seasonal leagues or dynasty leagues, for very, very cheap, on the off chance that you can get some blow-up weeks from him, especially if you play in best ball formats. Once again, guys, also starting August 17th, I will be going live with my first episode of I'm Outraged. I'm super excited to do it. I can't wait to unveil the tricks that I have up my sleeve. I've got a lot of ploys. Every week, I'm going to put my guests through situations that they've never expected, and I don't think viewers out there have ever encountered. Additionally, that version of the podcast will be available every Friday morning for your commute to work. Friday's a great day to be alive. It's a great day to go to work. Most of us are one day from the weekend. Why not listen to a podcast that's going to put you guys on an even more euphoric level? That's what we do over here at I'm Outraged. And lastly, guys, join the Discord. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? It's well over 700 and something members. I've absolutely lost count, but it's an absolute blast. We're going through all of our drafts right now, trade channels, everything you can imagine. You guys can hit me up when you get there. Once again, guys, I really hope you guys enjoy the video. Hit me up in the comments. Hit the like button. Of course, please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed what you saw. And I'll catch you guys next week.